Player Us Live. Awesemo.com, PGA show, Tuesday, 2:30. You people know the drill. Myself, Ben Razza, here with Fantasy Golf Man. Early golf is on the docket, our favorite thing in the world. Tim, what say you about the Florida swing?
I love the Florida swing. I like to roll out of bed Thursday morning, find out that my lineups are already dead, and start working on like Friday showdown. Now I love the early golf. I love the Florida swing. Interesting courses, Bermuda greens. We'll see some different guys kind of popping into relevance this week based on getting out of California. So I am all for the Florida swing.
Yeah, one of my favorites. I do want to say SuperDraft sponsoring the show, which we appreciate. Changing the game with their multiplier mode. If you haven't played there, really should go sign up. We've had a lot of people say they really like the format. It's just a different feel. And we're going to talk about it a little throughout the show. You're not constrained by salary. If you haven't signed up, promo code Awesemo, get those $20 free on your first deposit of $100 or more. But yeah, I mean, listen, before we dive into everything, I want to ask you a little about Mexico, and then I want to ask you the big change of surface. But I guess we could start with Mexico. Did you watch pretty interesting finish with Reed and Bryson?
Yeah, I didn't watch the finish live, but I was definitely following everything pretty closely. And yeah, it got pretty cool there. I mean, what Rahm did on the weekend was amazing, and just all the big names were right there. Kind of coming down the stretch Sunday. So that was really cool to see. And that's what you get in a WGC, a small field, great players. And then you get, 5-6 legitimate studs all with a shot to win on Sunday. So I mean, yeah, great event. And that's a cool course. I mean, it's just a very unique course. I think that adds to it too, when you have just a different type of course, things that you don't see week in and week out on the PGA Tour.
I really wanted Bryson. I had a Bryson outright, a good one. No dice. I didn't need Rahm. Got some things right though. We both Morikawa did not do anything that was really good. Sun Kang, not good. That was helpful. Overall, it was actually a fine week. Just felt like I could have got more because I had a lot of EVR and he was one of the key pieces. But now we transition back to what is a much different field. I mean, we go from non-cut to full field. We go from super field. I don't know. What would you classify Honda as? Middle of the road?
Yeah, middle of the road. I mean, I think it's probably a little bit better than average. It just we don't have that huge name at the top. I guess Brooks is that. It's just we haven't really seen a lot of them lately. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a terrible field. It's, not as great as Riviera or one of the WGCs, obviously. But, I mean, it's a good field. I just love this course, too. I guess I've watched, the 144 like worst golfers on tour tee it up here because I just think it's a cool event with a lot of carnage, which I like.
I mean, it's produced some. Well, I mean, I'll put it like this. This is a story for another time. But last year on Sunday, I was in the hospital for this. Keith Mitchell literally killed me. That I do remember. But it's a great course. PGA National is where we go, and I guess that's combining what I wanted to mention. In the sense, we go from POA to Bermuda, we go from the West Coast swing to the East Coast. We talk about quote unquote hard resets. I think a decent amount on this show. I mean, do you treat this differently than just the next event in a series of events?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Obviously, I'm keeping in mind what happened on the West Coast and how players played. I'm not totally disregarding that, but I do think that there are going to be some guys that just didn't play well in California that we're going to see pop, in the next couple weeks, just based on them preferring Bermuda or just being more comfortable on these Florida courses. They're a lot different, and the putting is definitely a lot different than we see on the West Coast. And there's so many guys on tour, especially young guys who, and I talk about this a lot, grew up in the Southeast United States, played college golf in the SEC, and they just don't have a ton of experience, playing on the West Coast and putting on POA greens. So yeah, this could be definitely kind of their time to get right. So yeah, it's definitely. I wouldn't be opposed to kind of taking some flyers on guys who've traditionally played well in Florida and putted well on Bermuda greens that maybe haven't had a good start to the season.
I feel the same way. I mean, it cuts both ways. You don't want to bias yourself, and if a guy's playing good, you say, well, he's playing great golf. It's going to translate. If he's playing bad, you say, well, now it's a hard reset. He's going to start playing good. But there are elements of both. And I do think, particularly with the greens, Bermuda guys are Bermuda guys. There's something to that. So we'll dive on in. We got good people in chat. Good to see Celia in there. Good to see a lot of the regulars. What's up, everybody? Talk about PGA National. Water, obviously the big defense, par 70. You said you liked it?
Yeah, it's about a 7,150-yard par 70. Like we said, Bermuda greens. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's played as one of the toughest, like, non-major tracks several times in, like, the last 10 years. You know, we look at the winning score. Last year it was -9. 2018, it was -8. 2017, -12. And that's about as low as you're going to see it. I mean, it stays right in that kind of -7, -8, -9 range. Stroke average always above par. And like I said, many times, I mean, it's played as like one of the top 5 toughest courses on tour, and that's including majors. So, I mean, it's a tough course. The wind has something to do with that, but there's a ton of water, a ton of bunkers. You know, I think it's one of those courses that I would have said 5 years ago, accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. But as the game's kind of evolved, you know, I mean, length is important at almost every course. And I mean, long approaches, I think, are important here, even though it's a shorter course. Really just kind of tests the all-around game. Fowler has a great record here. And I think that makes a lot of sense when you think about a guy who has a great all-around game, but doesn't overpower the course. I mean, has decent length, but not, you know, all-out bomber. But, you know, good approach game, good short game, good putter. So I think it makes sense that a guy like Fowler plays well here. Just so well, you know, I mean, it takes pretty much everything except you just don't need a ton of length, even though the last few years we've seen longer guys have success here too.
Definitely don't need length. It can help. I think there's something to that. I don't know. Keith Mitchell really throws a wrench into a lot of things for me. I'm praying that's an outlier, and I'm playing this week as if it is, because there's nothing that Keith Mitchell did last year that I saw that coming, and there's nothing that I look at now and say that's why he won particularly. But this is a course, I think the number one thing for me that stands out, if you play it enough, you're going to miss some cuts. And just to highlight that, last year, the leaderboard, you had Keith Mitchell won, Brooks and Ricky were tied for second, and Ryan Palmer came in fourth. All 4 of them had missed the cut in their last start at PGA National. Now, overall, they all have pretty solid showings. Keith Mitchell, obviously, only a couple years. It comes with the territory. When you have high variance with water like this, errant shots, a couple in the first 36 holes, and you miss the cut. It's just something to not overreact to when you're trying to break down these golfers.
Yeah, 100%. Probably the highest variance tournament there is out there, just due to the amount of water, the fact that the wind can blow and it plays tough. And like you said, I mean, a couple of loose shots on Thursday and you're done. And I mean, I think that's reflected in the course history for a lot of these guys. You'll see, you know, great finishes, a few of those, and some missed cuts. I think you have to tie that all into ownership too. Really not a good week to play super chalky players, just because really anybody has the potential to blow up and miss the cut. So, I mean, if you're playing guys that are, you know, 25% owned, this is a bad course to do that. In my opinion, it's a bad way to go in general, but especially here where the propensity for blowups is just a lot higher than at other tracks.
Massive blow up risk. We've got the bear trap. And that's one thing. If your guy, not that this is important to what we're going to get into in a second, but I tell you what, if your guy starts on the 10th hole, just chill out, because he's going to be 1 over through 2 or 2 over through 3. It's fine. That's the much tougher start. Don't overreact. Let's not get crazy. But yeah, let's get into it, because this is, you know, one of the first things. I did a show yesterday with Sal Vetri and Jeff Ulrich. We didn't have pricing for the beginning of the show, so we were kind of talking about what we thought, and all 3 of us thought it would go Brooks, probably Ricky, then Fleetwood, you know, Rose and Woodland. To see Fleetwood first, I was absolutely shocked. I'm not going to lie.
I was as well too, and it made me double. Like, I'm like, did he like backdoor like a T3 in Mexico that I like wasn't paying attention to? And he didn't. He was T18. So yeah, I don't get that price at all. I mean, Fleetwood, great golfer, was 4th here and is only showing. But boy, to be 11-6 and $400 more than Brooks. I mean, it's not like they're $100 difference. I mean, he's fairly significantly more expensive. I just don't see it with Fleetwood. I mean, he's a great golfer, but this week I don't see it with him. For me, I wouldn't mind going to Brooks at 11-2. He was T43 at Riviera, but the ball striking was good. It was the short game that kind of let him down. He played in the Middle East a couple times as kind of, not great results, but he wasn't terrible. But the ball striking was definitely a plus at Riviera. The T43 doesn't look very good on paper, but I just think, he's the closest thing to an elite golfer that we have. And obviously he is in majors. He's just a little inconsistent. I don't mind him. And I think my second guy that I would go to would be Woodland. Has a runner up here, has a T6 here, as a guy that, even though he has a ton of length, seems to prefer the shorter tracks. Was 12th in Mexico last week, and the ball striking was phenomenal. Gained, what did he gain? I think 6 or 7 strokes with the ball striking last week in Mexico, so he was good. So I think Brooks is a tournament play. I think Woodland, I just really like, seems like a safer play. I think this is a good spot for him.
So I think Woodland is going to be if we just look at the top 4, the guys over 10K, I think Woodland's going to be the highest owned. I feel pretty comfortable saying that. He's got the least amount of red flags. He's the cheapest. He makes sense. I don't mind that. I think, and maybe I'm overthinking it, I like Fleetwood, specifically because he's overpriced. I think you're going to get a significant ownership discount. I like his game. He's kind of just there. And it's partly an opportunity cost in the sense I don't know what to make of Ricky right now. And Brooks is Brooks. I think he's totally fine. I'm certainly going to have exposure, but what do you make of Fowler specifically? He's one of the few guys, I can't even think of anybody else, who didn't play Genesis or the WGC.
Yeah, the price, I think, is inflated just due to the fact that it's a weaker field and he's got such a good course history here. But just when we've seen him, the ball striking has not been good. So I'm obviously not a fan of that. That's one of the things I track probably the most. I think at 10-8, I just don't like the way that he's hitting it. Brooks has some question marks as well. But he struck it good at Riviera, and I think, on a tough course, he's the guy where you could see if he's on, just kind of crushing the field. I don't know what to make of Fowler at 10-8. He'd probably be my least favorite guy above 10K this week.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to have that mindset, and we'll see what the ownership projections over at Awesome will provide, because that's going to tell the tale. This is a week with all the water. I don't want to say it's just a blind fade of chalk, but man, is it tempting when in 36 holes, a couple water balls, and you're so ahead of the game. And now we add in, of course, top 65 and ties. Tall task for guys to make these cuts. Over on SuperDraft, no surprise, we have these names up there. Again, Fleetwood would be where I'd go. No problem with Brooks. The next tier, Justin Rose, sub 10K. I know it's, basically on the number. He leads off the 9s. Then you've got Usti, who has one of the all-time. Did you see those numbers?
Well, I don't understand the price based on what he did. He lost like 5 strokes off the tee last week. I know that. He was not good. I'm trying to come to grips with how he's 9,700, I guess, in this field.
He lost 13 strokes tee to green and gained 9 strokes putting en route to 51st in about a 70-man field. I'm not sure I've ever seen something like that, to be honest. It's something.
That's horrible. Usually when you see a guy who putts that well, it's a good finish, and you're like, well, he had a good finish, but he did it all with the punter. He was terrible. A terrible finish. Yeah, he was. I guess he was probably the worst player in the field, probably tee to green, huh?
Yeah, I would assume. I mean, he's got to be. He's going to be clearly the lowest owned guy up top. There's no question about it. But what do you make of this range? Because very interesting. Like I said, you have Rose, then you have Hovland, who won in Puerto Rico, Sanjay, and then Billy Ho, who's probably going to be the chalk.
Yeah, I like Rose at 9,900. We've just seen him at an elite level for so long. A couple of poor events really doesn't scare me off. Wasn't good at Riviera, missed the cut. I think it was at the Farmers. But that just doesn't bother me. I mean, we've seen great golf out of Justin Rose for like 15 years, maybe even longer. So at 9,900, it feels like a buy low spot. He's got a good record here. He's got a third, a fourth, and a 15th, third, a fourth, a fifth, and a 15th in 6 events. So I just think it's a spot where maybe people aren't going to go there because he wasn't great at Riviera, missed the cut prior to that. But, I believe in Rose long term, and I just think this is a good price for him. Boy, besides that, I don't like a chalky and somewhat expensive Billy Horschel at all. He was good last week, no doubt about it. T9, the ball striking was great, but he was also T9 at waste management, and he did that all with the putter. It's good for him to come in on 2 top 10s, but an expensive and chalky Billy Horschel, I don't like. I guess if I had to pivot, Lowry would be a guy, because it seems like you have Berger, Horschel, who are going to draw a lot of ownership. You have EVR, who's kind of like has this cult following. I don't think he'll be chalky, but people might go there. Lowry would be the pivot for me. He struck it pretty decent last week. He was decent in a couple of Middle East events. I don't love him. For me, it's pretty much just Rose out of the whole 9K range.
No Sanjay? He's the other guy. I agree. I like Rose a lot. Sanjay Im is the pivot for me off Billy Ho.
I don't know. I'm always lower than the field on Sanjay. I just never seem to get there. And honestly, recently he hasn't been terrible, but I haven't really feel like I've missed out on anything.
It reminds me of Morikawa, similar, where I've been saying that. Like, I haven't been playing him. It hasn't been, I'm not printing, but I'm not getting crushed by any extent. And I did smash Bryson head-to-head against him last week, which was quite useful. So Shane Lowry, I just talked about this with Pat Mayo. I don't want to read too much into this, but he really doesn't do much in Florida. He's been awful at API. He's been pretty bad at the Players. At Honda, he's made the cut twice, 49th and 53rd. Now, I totally get the concept of like tough conditions. Lowry can get hot with the putter. We've seen that from him. I just worry a little about him on Bermuda and just him in general with these type of courses.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I guess I haven't really looked at his overall record in Florida. Maybe Bermuda is not his thing. And to be honest, I don't love him. I was just thinking more of a pivot off of some of these super chalky guys, because I think Horschel and Berger will be very popular. I just thought he was an interesting pivot, but you know what? I don't even know if he's going to make any of my lineups. Not in love with him by any stretch.
I'm just going to rattle him off. So Valspar, he was 49th in his appearance. Last year, Players miscut. Going back 2018, 46, 2017 miscut. He's missed the cut 3 straight times at API. He was a 49th and 53rd here. So really nothing cracking the top 50 in the last couple of years from any of the Florida courses. It's not to say he can't do it. It's not to say there's a glaring leak. The only reason I even look to Shane Lowry is because I really don't like Billy Ho at this ownership that I think we're going to see. But for me, it would be Sanjay. And then the last guy I want to ask you about is, what do you make of Hovland coming off the win?
It's a tough spot, right? Coming off your first PGA Tour win.
Yeah.
And this is, and I guess we didn't really talk about this, but I shouldn't say it goes without saying. And the harder the course, the more around the green is important. And I think around the green is very important this week. There's going to be a lot of missed greens. You're going to have to scramble. Hovland, admittedly, if you saw the interview, he said his short game sucks. So I don't think I would be going there. I mean, you love the ball striking. The guy's phenomenal, off the tee and on approach, but 9,500, bad short game, coming off your first PGA Tour win. Not for me this week.
I'm right in line. I'll say this: Billy Ho 1.2x on SuperDraft, not bad. I could get down with that. Now we get. I just said I don't like chalk Billy Ho, but I think I might buy into chalk Daniel Berger, the Seminole over the Gator. I guess you have him. You have Benyon. This range is wild. Benyon, Neiman, Poston, Poulter, and then CH3 withdrew, and then you have Ryan Palmer. What do you make of the 8Ks? I assume you have a couple targets in here.
Yeah, it's really hard not to like Berger this week. I mean, everything lines up. He's a guy that we've both been kind of tracking for a while, and it just kind of seems to be, all adding up and culminating now here. We're in Florida, and he likes this event. He likes Bermuda greens, but he was T5 at Pebble. He was T9 at the Waste Management. Prior to that, T29, T38, but he's gained a positive ball striking all 4 events and some pretty decent numbers. Waste management was a lot of the putter, but the other 3 events, the ball striking was really good. Now he comes to Florida. He's a Florida guy, like you said, has a playoff loss here. You think of his 2 wins at St. Jude Classic, Bermuda Greens, short par 70, easier track than this. But, everything really lines up for him, and 8,900 is a good price. It's just you have to kind of figure out whether you want to eat the chalk or not. But it's a great spot for Berger.
Deal. I can't find one thing to say besides the ownership in terms of why I wouldn't want to play him. It's a really good spot, and I think he's healthy, playing well, preferred surface, par 70. And obviously there's something too. I've been playing a lot of Berger. I've been playing him this whole time. It's hard to jump off when you feel like you're about to get paid off. So we'll see. If you don't like him, though, you have Benny on, you have Neiman, you have Poston. I like Ian Poulter, actually, who didn't play he didn't get into Mexico. Not a Florida guy, but he's kind of a Florida guy. He's very comfortable down there. Good showing at the Players. Haven't seen him since the Middle East. Do you like him? Do you like Benny on? Where do you go from here?
No, I'm not playing Benny on. I'm sorry. I mean, the around the green game is great, and the ball striking is better, but I don't know. I just feel like I always thought of Benny on as like a Connors guy. The guy just gains a ton off the tee and on approach and is awful with the putter. And lately, it's like I don't know what he's doing. Kind of like I feel like he's like Sung J M. I don't know what to expect out of him. I'd go Poston at 8,600. I don't think a lot of people would be on him, but he's been solid. The ball striking has been decent, positive ball striking in 3 straight events. Or I would just go to my guy Corey Connors at 8,200. No, you're shaking me off.
I never play Corey Connors. I don't know if that's like a secret and no one knows that. I legitimately never have him.
He's Grillo. I mean, he's exactly the same golfer as Grillo.
Just a little better.
Yeah, just a little bit better. He loses like 1.75 around putting instead of the full 2 strokes. No, I mean, for me, I guess it would be Poston. I like Connors. I don't know if I'll get there. It's really hard for me to pass up the ball striking, the off the tee and on approach. It's like, when you can pencil a guy in and week out to just be positive and not just slightly positive. I mean, he is going to gain off the tee. He's going to gain on approach. It's hard for me to, bypass that at 8,200. But the short game is a problem. So if he does miss the green, and he will miss greens, that's where he's going to struggle this week.
Do you have any thoughts on? I mean, Ryan Palmer for me fits a lot of what you just said. Maybe it's not to the extent of Corey Connors. Ryan Palmer is a guy when he hits a ton of greens in regulation, he doesn't have to scramble. It's good. Now he is the notorious water ball man.
It's like, how do you know what to get out of him? It's like high variance player, high variance event. It's just like it's all lined up for him twice though. He was 4th here last year, playoff loss here back in 2014. I don't know. That's just you're playing with. That's a lot of fire to be playing with him. All the water. What about? Okay, I'll throw one back to you. What about your boy Charles at 8,100 coming off the T5 at Pebble with good course history here?
I mean, that is Charles is like. I mean, yes, he had a result, but before that, he was as dust could be.
Okay, so I'm not an equipment guy. I don't really but he at some point changed from the PXG irons to like some homemade irons that he's drilling the back out of and modifying himself. Is this did this just happen? If this just happened before Pebble, I'm interested, but I don't know when.
He was using non-wooden clubs during this stretch. He obviously had other things wrong because he was missing the cut by like 15 strokes for months.
So you're out on Schwartzel?
Well, he had to have been hurt, right?
He was 3rd at the Alfred Dunhill Championship. That's an awful event, but he went 3rd there, and then he missed the cut in 3, and then he went 5th at Pebble.
That's the one in South Africa?
The one in South Africa where
okay. I mean, that's like Joburg Open style.
Well, he actually missed the cut at the Joburg Open. Oh, that's a South African Open. Sorry.
The Joburg Open is like 300 people in that event. I'm not even joking. It gets dangerously insane. I always bet Jocko Van Zel there, and then I lose my money. Anyway,
Okay, I got somebody. At flat 8, I like List.
I knew you were going to say that, and I totally see why. He can club down off the tee. He's forced to, basically. And we've seen him excel at that kind of setup. I don't want to say he's a sneaky good scrambler, but he's a lot better than he was. You look at List now. He should have. I think he should have beat JT here. I remember that vividly. Thought he had his chances. He was the runner-up in 2018. No problem. Do you like him over Grillo at 8K?
Oh, I'm not touching Grillo. I don't know. That's typical Grillo. He's been terrible. He goes to Puerto Rico, and it's like we don't even know what happened. I don't even know if they played that event. That's like the moon landing. Like they could have just
the moon landing.
They could have just made that on a Hollywood set and said it happened. Of course, he goes T3. We have absolutely no stats. We don't know anything of what happened. I watched 0 shots of that event. I'm not touching him at all. So no. Yes, I like List a lot better. T30, T25, T36, but positive ball striking in all 3 of those. His last 3 starts, like you said. T2 here where he should have beat JT. He also has a T10. He's kind of got the Gary Woodland thing working where he's super long off the tee but sucks on really long courses. So when the course kind of forces him to rein it in, it seems like that's where we get the best result. So yeah, I'm going to recant Connors. I think I would just play List over Connors.
Interesting. Okay. I like List a lot more than Connors as well. Grillo, truth be told, I'm undecided on what to do. I want to see what the ownership is. We can't see, typical him to do that where we don't have strokes gain data. I don't know. I'm not even going to.
In theory, it's a good course, being that it's short, requires precision, Bermuda greens. But I mean, what? He has a T8 here and 3 other not very good finishes. And in the last year or more, I mean, what have we gotten out of him besides that T3 in Puerto Rico? You've gotten nothing. And I've played a lot of them at the end of last year and got nothing.
Oh, I played a lot.
And this year he's been awful until last week.
Listen, I think the first question you have to ask before you look at like course history or any splits with Grillo is any of that data even good anymore? Because he's just not this. To me, there's a real question if he's even that player. Like, this would be a good spot for him, and we've seen him excel at API. We've seen him excel at courses like this. But it doesn't matter if you can't scramble or putt to the extent that he's been doing. So keep that in mind. My God. Yeah, it looks broken when I look up these numbers. Anyway, working down into the 7s. Interesting names. Johnny Vegas. Chad asked about Lee Westwood. You've got the Wolfman, Vaughn Taylor, your boy Russell Knox, who I think is getting a pretty good price, even though he's coming off 2 missed cuts. What do you make of the high 7s?
This is an interesting range. I like a lot of guys here. I don't mind English at 7,800. I think he was great in the fall swing and then cooled off a little bit. But T16 at Waste Management, positive ball striking. But he's a guy, I mean, if you go and you look at his best performances, go on the World Golf Rankings page, they're almost all at short courses. He won at St. Jude and Mayakoba. He's got a 5th and a 2nd at Colonial. He's got a 3rd and a 4th at Sony. Like 6 of his top 10 finishes career long are all at like super short accuracy type courses, a lot like here. I just think it's a good fit for him, and he's been playing well. Westwood is interesting. Good course history here. He was decent last week. T22 won one of the Mid-East swings. I don't mind him at 7,800, but it's tough. I mean, he's been kind of off the radar for so long. Then he wins on the Middle East swing, and it's like, boom, now we're all of a sudden. I don't remember the last time I considered playing Westwood in a PGA Tour event.
I was about to say, I would assume I never would have played him again at a PGA event.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but I wish he was a little cheap. If he was like 7,200, I would have a lot of interest. But I think I lean to like Harris English over him. I lean to Russell Knox, who, again, I know this is a good course for him. He's not playing great, but this is exactly what I would want. And I almost would rather have the price drop and the murky recent form rather than him being like 8,500 in chalk.
Yeah, we say he's not playing well. Well, he missed the cut at Riviera, where it's like if you don't hit it, 330 right down the middle, you have almost no chance. And he missed the cut at Pebble, which, okay, I mean, a pro-am on POA, I don't know. We only have numbers for one of the 3 rounds. I mean, prior to that, he was playing good, and the ball striking was good. And I mean, we talk about this every time we talk about Knox, Honda, RBC, the players, all these short Valspar, yeah, all these short courses in Bermuda. I mean, this is right up his alley, and I can write off those 2 missed cuts, at Riviera and Pebble fairly easily, because he came in, hitting the ball well. So yeah, this is a really good spot for him. I don't think a ton of people will play him just because they'll see the back-to-back missed cuts. But those are pretty easy to write off. But yeah, there's a lot of guys down here.
The one thing that is interesting, and I don't want to overreact to it, but Knox has been somewhat adamant in public about he's found ways to increase distance. He thinks that's a missing link. He's done that. He's got more distance this year. His accuracy is really taking a hit. This is one of the few events he would actually want to revert back to what he used to do, which is just pure accuracy.
Yeah, I remember reading that article right before Waste Management, and I had played him at Waste Management, and like the first 9 holes, I mean, he was his off the tee was awful. I don't remember if he kind of turned it around at all, but I just remember thinking like, oh, this is the new Russell Knox off the tee, and he was just couldn't hit a fairway and was in the desert and all this other stuff. So that wasn't good. Boy, there's other guys. I mean, I think Maverick McNeely, he's been playing really well. I think he's interesting. I love Harmon this week.
Ooh, okay. I thought you were going to say Russell Henley. We would have had to stop the show.
No, not Henley, we could talk about Henley too, but I think Harmon, I think this is a really good spot for him. 7,300. He was playing really, really well in the last 2 events. I mean, T47, T49, right around 0 with the ball striking. So it hasn't been great. He hasn't been good, but I think prior to that, he was awesome. And I mean, it just feels like kind of like a buy low spot at 7,300. He's only missed 1 cut since the Open Championship last year. Great around the green player. I think the course fit is good. And just another one of the guys who I think, played maybe a couple courses that weren't the best fit for him. So I think he's just too cheap at 7,300.
I've got the guy at 7,300, but it's not. I like Brian Harmon. I think he's fine. But Bud Cauley is going to be. He could be one of my highest owned guys. I'll say that much. I really like the spot for him. Not playing perfect, but he's not playing bad either. He's 4th at Amex. Made a couple cuts here and there. Irons are fine. Off the tee's weak. I think he can mitigate that here. Par 70, Bermuda. I think this sets up sneaky good. You're not going to need a lot of ownership, and it's Bud Cauley, who that I like to get exposure to.
You love Cauley. You will reverse engineer a reason to play him every week.
That's what I'm here for, to produce this show and to find reasons to play Bud Cauley.
I have, this is like maybe the most plays I have ever in one range. I got more guys that we need to talk about.
In the low 7s?
Yeah. So Keith Mitchell, I hate that he won this event.
What?
Yes, but listen, hear me out.
Please.
I really, the one thing that I hate is that he's the defending champion here.
Almost killed me. You would have to do the show alone. I was a dead man because Killer Keith won.
But he was T16 at Waste Management. He gained 8 strokes with the ball striking. He was decent. Oh shoot! Now I can't remember. You already threw me off my game. Where was it? Was it Pebble? What did he play prior?
Waste Management and Pebble. He was good.
T32 at Waste Management, gained 8 strokes with the ball striking. T16 at Pebble. I think I have that right. And he gained something like 5 strokes with the ball striking in like 2 measured rounds. He's hitting it really, really well. Like you said, not a great course fit. I don't like that he's coming in as the defending champion, but I mean, kind of sneaky, hitting it really well the last 2 events.
He is striking the ball well. He's playing well. I just have to. This is a situation where it tests your process, I guess, to an extent. Keith Mitchell, I don't care that he won last year. This, to me, I couldn't think of a worse course for what he does. And that fact, I think, is going to drag the ownership up to a level where I'm not comfortable. If he had missed the cut here last year and he was a 1%er, I still probably wouldn't get there because I really don't like the fit. But there's no doubt he's striking it well. You mentioned, he really gained, the one leak was around the green. And I think we both know, for him to compete here or any of these type of tracks, he has to be good with the irons. If they're shaky, it's over for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's really kind of a polarizing play this week because, like you said, the course fit doesn't seem good. I don't like that he's the defending champ, and that will draw some ownership. But he's a big time Bermuda guy, and he's hitting it really, really well the last 2 times out without the great finishes. He's not coming in with back-to-back T10s or something that people are really gonna, find appealing. You gotta have to dig a little bit, but yeah, he's hitting it great.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. So, and he is truly, I say your boy a lot, but Sam Burns is a guy that you really like. He is going to be, I mean, who hasn't mentioned him this week?
I don't know. He's an amazing, amazing play this week. I love him. How chalky is he going to be? Give me your ownership estimate.
I mean, I don't think you can get that chalky when you're down here. I'd say I think there's a chance he's like 15% though.
I don't think people are going to play. I mean, people will play him, but I feel like he's one of those guys that people are touting, but then when it comes down to it, people aren't going to play.
That may be true.
Because the results really aren't there on paper. T23 cut, T49, T6, and cut. But the thing is, over that span, the ball striking has been phenomenal. He's gaining 1.5 strokes off the tee on approach per round over that span. And to put that in perspective, I mean, that's what JT is gaining this year. That's like a little bit less than like Rory. And I'm not saying, obviously, he's not those guys, but I mean, that's the quality of ball striking he's shown over the last 4 events. He has a T8 here. He's another big-time Bermuda guy, Louisiana guy, LSU guy. And the one thing I like about him is he is actually a good putter, and I think that does make a difference. Obviously, it's nice to roster guys that are decent putters. Last year, he's 29th in strokes gained putting. 2018, didn't play enough rounds to be ranked, but he was plus 0.73 strokes gained putting. That would put you probably in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. So great putter, big time Bermuda guy, striking it great, but the results aren't really there. I like him. Hopefully he's not too chalky.
No, I mean, listen, I get why people are looking there. This is where, again, I wish I had a great hot take. Oh, he's definitely going to miss the cut. He's definitely going to top 5. Ownership is going to be, it's going to be very nuanced. I don't mind him, but if I can get 1/10 the ownership on someone next to him, I'll probably do that. If he's like 20% owned, I can't get over, because it's not Sam Burns, it's anybody at this course. Your miscut equity is gigantic. It's just very, very dangerous.
God awful around the greens.
God awful.
175th around the green last year. 226 this year.
220. I mean, we don't have time on this show. I don't think I can name 225.
Go look at his shot tracker Friday at the Waste Management on that drivable par 4. Just go look at it and get back to me. You'll see why he's 226th around the green.
Yeah, there's not that many plays. Speaking of guys that went to Puerto Rico and did things just to tempt me, Kyle Stanley.
What happened?
I don't.
Is it like a psychological thing playing against weaker competition where guys Stanley had been awful, Grillo had been awful, and they both go and they show up, and I know it's not like the competition was so bad they could play terrible and finish T3. And I just think it had to be a confidence thing. I think they feel like they had a more of an opportunity to win, and that opened something up. But it's hard to really figure out what's going on with these guys who were awful and then went to Puerto Rico and played well. I don't know if it's going to carry over, but I don't like them.
Yeah, it's tough. I think you can maybe look to it, but God, it's tricky to see something come out of nowhere. And then there's just a couple of names, and then we'll dive into the cheapies. Denny McCarthy, the putting god. I just have to mention him because I've never seen anything like it. I really haven't. I'm not going to play him, but do you have any interest in a guy? I mean, he's gaining 4.4 strokes putting on average over his last 10 events. Think about that.
I mean, but he might not get it to the green. I mean, his ball striking is so bad. I mean, we could see 6 to 8 water balls on the front 9 or something. Now, I obviously joke, but I mean, it's the same thing with him every week. I mean, if the ball striking can be anywhere near passable, the putting will be great, and that's going to get paid off. I don't think it's any different this week. It's higher variance, but no, I never played Danny McCarthy. And this isn't an event where I think it's wow, this is a putting competition.
No, it's not.
You need to make a bunch of birdies. I mean, obviously the putts are probably more of them are going to be for par, but this isn't an event where it's boy, you need to be hot with the putter. I don't see it this week.
No.
So no.
I mean, this is an event, and I'm not saying that you can really do this. Of course, it's correlated to approach and off the tee. If you stay out of the drink, it's pretty hard to not be at least okay. If you just avoid the major numbers, bogeys here are fine. You just don't want to have doubles and triples on the card. Last guy, and then we'll dive. Taylor Gooch. You always talk about him. Great with the irons. Everything else is bad. Anything?
I don't think I'm going to play him this week. Obviously intriguing based on what happened at Riviera. Was T10. The ball striking was really good. And he's a guy who we've seen over the last couple of years just has these nuke events where it's just he's just laser irons, and it's amazing. And we've seen it multiple times out of him. I always compare him at this point. I guess maybe he's like a poor man's Connors, which is kind of crazy. But just the events where he's just gains an unbelievable amount of strokes off the tee and on approach. He hasn't really been super consistent, so it's hard for me to say. I don't think I'm going to play him, but definitely intriguing. I mean, I like his upside because you never know when you're going to get one of those just amazing ball striking events. But I don't think I'm going to play him.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in line. I'll say this real quick. Just going back, Schwartzel is 1.5x on SuperDraft. That is a massive steal if you think he's even remote. He's priced with guys who are like the min on DraftKings. I also want to say, as we always do, PGA Strategy is the promo code. Get in, give us a try. We'd love to have you as part of the community. Chat, I see you all in there discussing the sports. Golf DFS is the best. Hockey Live is my favorite sport. I think those are the obvious answers because I know what I'm talking about. But if you can hit the like button, whether or not agree with that hot take, it would really help us out. Keeps the show in front of the paywall. Really does a ton. Go watch this. Go to iTunes, like, subscribe, leave those good reviews. Talk about Tim. That's the kind of stuff we need. All right. This is a week. I mean, you're going to need some cheapies. The one positive I'll say, and then I'll pass it to you. I don't see a big difference between the top of the 6Ks and the bottoms. I think you can go way down if you want. But I'll get it started with Chesson Hadley at 6,800. What do you think? No? Bad?
Never Chesson Hadley. No.
He talk about pebble. He wasn't terrible. If he scrambles, it's over. But if he hits all the GIRs and he's on Bermuda, I think this could be okay. What are you gonna go, Effie Barnrat?
Never Effie Barnrat.
Okay. People do that.
My God. Don't even get me started on that guy. People love to play him too, and it's just no. It's weird. For as many players as I love. From 73 to 7K, it's just done at 7K for me. I don't really know if I'm going to go down here. The high sixes, literally nobody. I'll just throw 2 names out there, and these guys maybe kind of out of left field, but it kind of goes along with the going to Florida, and maybe we might see something out of them. Two rookies, but they're both Florida guys. They've both been playing pretty well. They've both been striking it pretty well, and I don't think anyone's going to play him. Chase Seifert at 6,700. He's made 8 straight cuts, positive ball striking in 3 of his last 4 shot link events. Went to Florida State, grew up in Panama City, so more of a panhandle guy, but that's still Florida. And the other guy is Tyler McCumber at 6,600. He went to Florida, grew up in Ponte Vedra Beach, I think. Ponte Vedra Beach, yeah.
Right.
T20 last week in Puerto Rico, T32 in Pebble, T21 in the Farmers. On the season, really good ball striking out of him, gaining more than a half a stroke off the tee and on approach. So, 2 rookies playing decent golf, both Florida guys coming to Florida. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them have a decent event here, if not both.
Chase Seifert, yeah, that's a guy that I've played during this stretch. I think it's fine. He's going to have to do some work with the putter. He is a Seminole, as you mentioned, and there's just not a lot here. I mean, you want to talk about like severe Bermuda guys? You've got Brian Stewart at 67. He loves the surface. Burgoon loves the surface. I don't really see a ton there. McCumber's interesting. Chat just asked about him. I got a name here, two names actually at 65. And I'm not even saying I like these guys, but I think they're interesting. First is Cameron Percy, another Aussie. Been striking it well. 36th at Farmers, gained 7.6 with the irons there alone. Is gained on the approach consistently. Any interest in him? I'm not sure I've ever played him, to be honest.
I don't think I've ever played him either. He's one of those guys where the ball striking just been phenomenal all year. The results haven't been there. Around the green's been poor. Obviously, when you see a guy gaining a ton of strokes approach, ton of strokes off the tee, and like never finishes inside the top 40. No, I mean, I like the ball striking. I think obviously you could do worse at coming down here, but I don't think I'd be playing him.
Next guy, what'd you say?
Who you got next?
So Chad has brought this guy up a couple times. We had a couple people say this is a sleeper. Scott Brown.
Scott Brown, huh?
He was second at Genesis, but he did it all with the putter. Then he did not do what people may have thought he would do last week.
He went to the Scott Brown Open and he didn't win like he was supposed to, huh?
That's right. Personally, I don't really see it. I'm not going to lie. I think he did most of his work at Genesis with the putter, and other than that, it's just been bad for a long time. I get Bermuda and whatnot, but not really for me, even though I have seen his name thrown around a lot.
Yeah, I don't like him. Like you said, I mean, the course fit, it's like, he's like the poor man's Kisner, the short Bermuda guy. It's like a homeless man's Kisner, I guess I should put it that way. I think people are probably seeing the T2 and thinking, that's a good sign, but he did it all with the putter. That's a terrible course fit. So no, I don't think I'll be playing him. I could have swore you were going to go Duffner, but he's 6,400.
So Scott Brown and Percy were guys that chat mentioned. I want to get to them because we want to answer your questions. Duffner is my own play. I like him quite a bit. Listen, I've talked a million times. I think it's important to build with somewhat of a macro, mentality in mind. I've been playing Duffner. It's been okay. He lost 9 strokes putting at the Genesis, which is hard to do. I'm going to stick with it. I think this is the best course fit that he's seen in some time. So I don't know why I'd jump off now if he's making the cut.
Yeah, I don't think I'm playing Duffner, but definitely the course fit is there. Shorter course, back in SEC country, back on Bermuda. And the other thing about him is this isn't a course where hitting the fairway and hitting it to 18 feet and never making an 18-foot birdie putt, that's not going to hurt you. You don't need to make a ton of birdies here. If you're hitting the fairway, hitting the green, and as long as he's not 3-putting all of these greens, if he can just hit it to 15 feet and keep missing those and 2-putting, he's going to lose a lot of strokes putting, but he's not going to lose a lot of ground on the scorecard. This isn't a place where, you need to be hot with the putter. So, I mean, I don't like him, but I think you could do worse down here.
Yeah, I mean, streaks, bonuses, not going to be pertinent. I don't mind looking at that. And listen, when you're in these ranges, you're not going to find anything useful. You're going to have to infer and take a shot at some. I mean, go ahead, somebody.
What about everyone's Twitter bet heartbreak at the flat? Or he's 6,100, but Teeter coming off the T2. That seems too cheap. I don't know if I had to go all the way down here. He's the guy I would pick. Just coming off, maybe he can build off of that finish last week.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone. Guy's been playing pretty well. I'll be honest. I don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know if that help in terms of this week. If something like that helps him or hurts him, like that's probably as close as he'll ever get. To be honest. Don't know if he feels like he missed his one shot, or maybe it's a catalyst to keep it going. I think if I had to go to the min, and this is pretty gross, I would play Chris Kirk over him.
I knew you were going to say that.
Listen, there's no form to speak of, but Chris Kirk is not a min player in this field. If he starts to get it, and he hasn't been getting crushed, he's been missing the cup, but the strokes gain data is fine. So And it's worth noting Hank Lebioda is another. I think he's a Gator or a Seminole. I can't ever remember.
Seminole.
Seminole.
You can't get those two. As someone that grew up in Florida, you cannot get like that confused.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I remember the Seminoles cost me a lot of money last night. They laid a beat down on Louisville in the second half. Not good. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, Chris Kirk for me. I'm just going to go on long-term pedigree. He's a better golfer than what we see down here.
Yeah, and I mean, the ball striking, it hasn't been an abomination. Some of these guys you see down here, they're just leaking oil off the tee and on approach.
Yeah.
It really hasn't been the problem with him, and I mean, he's working his way back. I'm not going to play him, but at the min, he'd be one of the guys I'd look to.
But yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I'll need to play him. I'll say this, though. If I make like a Fleetwood Brooks lineup, you throw him in there and now you're back to a reasonable 3-man in terms of salary left. Will you even look to play Vijay Singh, who I think will get a sliver of ownership just because of what we saw last year?
No, not at all. I mean, it's funny, though. You can't say that he's gotten a bump in price because of the course history. So, I mean, he's got great course history, 6th, 6th, and 4th here since 2010, but he's still the stone min. No, I'm not going there.
Nah, listen, could he make a cut again? And could he play well? I'm sure it's possible. This is a weird course, but I can't do it. So not going to get there. Did you bet anyone? I think it's actually a pretty decent card to look at. Did you make any bets yet?
Yeah, I did bet Burns at 100-1. I think he's probably a better bet than a DraftKings play just because, as you said, he's probably going to be at least somewhat popular. But yeah, I just love the way he's hitting it. I think moving to Florida, moving to Bermuda greens is huge. And he's a guy, unlike most of the guys that I bet, he can actually putt. And I think he can get really high with the putter. Great off the tee game. I think the approach game has been good. Around the green game, that's kind of his Achilles heel. But hopefully, maybe he won't need to rely on that. I think I think the putter could turn around, and I think you can see big things out of him this week. So I like him at 100-1. I like him on DraftKings. I guess we'll just have to see how popular he is.
Time will tell. And again, we encourage everyone, tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, we got another Live Before Lock PGA show. They get in, more weather-based ownership, talk about the projections, get into that. Going to be important for a week like this. I bet, and listen, I'm not in love with the play, but I bet Justin Rose, just because he was 25-1 in a field like this, I grabbed it. I think there's a legit argument that you could say he might be the second best player in this field. And for me, 25-1 was just too short of a price, even though he's not playing great.
Yeah, I mean, I like Rose a lot, like you said. And I mean, we've just seen him, like we said at the top, we've seen him for so long. He's been such a good player for so long that it's really hard to make a lot out of 2 events. That's not going to scare me off, and the price is down. It'd be one thing if he was, we're trying to figure out whether we wanted to play him at 10-8, but yeah, 9,900, really good price for him in this field.
Yeah, it's just, and I think the important thing to that point is it's just like, it's not Hovland or a guy that I don't long-term, Justin Rose has been doing this for a long time. I'm not even remotely concerned that something's wrong or anything like that. It's just probably a slow start. And I think with the price drop in a field like this, it's pretty easy to justify, even though it's not an ideal situation, no doubt about it.
Yep, Rose is definitely one of the guys I like. I think we're on the same page there.
Patty Harrington is, man, there is some dudes in this field. I can't believe, I will say, as we wrap up, I can't believe that you got me to take, I'm going to have to take a closer look at Charles. That is not a name I even remotely considered. Maybe I'll look into that because he does fit an area where I don't feel super comfortable. But in terms of lineup construction, last thing I wanted to ask you, do you think it is going to be more of a balanced build because people are going to be freaked out about the lower range and / they don't want to pay for Fleetwood? Or do you think maybe people will go stars and scrubs?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be more balanced because you think about guys like Horschel and Berger and Woodland, I think, are going to be the most popular guys. And, Woodland's obviously up there, but, the 3 of those, not super expensive. I don't think people are trying to jam all 3 in. I think I get the feeling like at a hard course where there's a ton of variance, they're like, well, I don't want to go down and play some of these cheap guys. But honestly, that doesn't. I don't know how much that matters. I mean, the variance is going to kind of get anyone, and some of these cheap guys are just as likely to get through the cut or get hit with a bunch of water balls than some of the mid-range guys. But I think people's mindset is like, oh, I can't punt because this is such a hard course, and maybe the opposite's true. I don't know. What do you think about that? Is it is it better to play or some of the cheaper guys because of the variance?
I think so. I think that, and I don't want to use VJ as an example, but it kind of just, this to me is somewhat, I don't want to say it's a gimmicky course, but there's just an atypical feel where if you stay out of the drink and you do what you can, just kind of plot your way around, you can be somewhat effective. Now, the big if is, can someone up top carry the weight? Because I'm not playing a 6K guy thinking they're going to win the tournament. I think they can get through, they can avoid the blow up, and it sets the stage for like a Fleetwood Ricky or a Fleet, and a very aggressive 1-2 to do the heavy lifting. I'm going to embrace that to an extent. You got to be careful though. You don't want to be spraying wildly down there. And that's not to say that these guys up top are going to get through, because like I said, a couple bad holes, someone's going to get clipped, it.
Yeah, and just kind of talking about lineup construction a little bit more. Another reason why I don't think it's stars and scrubs is because, one, I don't think people love the stars, and two, I don't think people love the scrubs. So it's like, people aren't really going to feel comfortable playing that lineup. Maybe like last week where it was like, oh my God, there's all these guys at the top we love, and it's like, oh my God, we can play EVR down at the bottom, and that really, you feel great about a stars and scrubs. No, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of question marks about the expensive guys and a lot of question marks about the cheap guys.
Every time it's a non-cut, stars and scrub gets a massive boost because people's fear about the 6K guys is alleviated. This, I think, gets magnified because everyone's scared of the water. How can I play a guy who's playing bad? He's just going to shoot like 15 over. Let me play what we already talked about. I think people will try to end it with Sam Burns. To me, that's I don't want to say it's a mistake. I'm going to try to open it up a little more and see what I can do up top. But ownership will dictate some of that. And we'll see what happens. But just want to say right as we walk on out of here, thanks to SuperDraft. Go over there, sign on up, chat. You guys were awesome as always. It's fun having the conversations. If you guys have any questions, you can find us on Twitter. You can find us in Slack. Projections, ownership, all that stuff will be coming out this week. Good luck. Enjoy the Florida swing. And we'll be back next Tuesday for another PGA Tour event.